Hi guys and welcome to my latest video. Now what we are going to talk about today is Allo USBridge signature player. It's a little bit long name, but what it is, it's audio streamer, and unlike many other Allo products that are actually just boards or hats or some sort of add-ons for Raspberry Pis, this is, as you can see, a complete product. It's already pre-assembled, it's boxed, and it's just ready to use. So today I'm quickly going to go through its features, build, and of course the biggest chunk of the video will be about sound quality and comparison to some other Allo's products, but more on that later. So let's start with the build. It's basically an all aluminum case, and that's nice. I like that more instead of like stacking boards on top of my Pi and then using some sort of acrylic cases like in case of DigiOne series. And when it comes to connectivity, here on the front panel we see two USB inputs. These are so-called dirty inputs or inputs that are not meant to be used to connect your DAC to them, but to connect something else like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, USB flash or something. And on the right side of the unit there are two LED notifications to show you if the unit is powered, is it booting properly and things like that. I'll not go into details, you can find that on the official web page, user manual and so on. And the last important part is micro SD slot. Now this one is reserved exclusively for operating system, because this device is based on Raspberry Pi, and that means that operating system is placed on the SD card and boot from there. So it's not for storage or anything like that. But we have more to talk about on the back panel. First, you see USB-C type, that's port for powering the unit, 5 volts DC. Then HDMI, if you're going to use a screen. For audio streamers, we usually don't. Then USB clean, which is actually a USB port you're going to use to connect your DAC to this streamer. And finally, Ethernet port to connect it to your home network. And if you're wondering what is this golden big connector, it's actually a binding post. And it's of the same type that you will find on your speakers and integrated amplifiers. But in this case, it's actually a grounding connector. And it's used to ground this whole aluminum casing to electrical ground. And the manufacturer claims that if you do that, you will yield some sonic benefits. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. And with that, I think we covered build and connectivity. When it comes to features, I have to say that will hugely depend on the operating system you choose. Now, when you're actually buying this unit, you have a choice of 3 or 4 different operating systems that they will preload on the SD card for you. But you can of course also download any Raspberry Pi based OS and load it to that SD card and try it for yourself. You can play, you can try different ones. If you want something feature rich, for example, Volumio or Mood are great options. They have integrated music players, they can handle both files, streaming services, internet radios, and so on. If you want something simple to make this a bridge only, basically, you can use RowPi, RowPi XL that are Rune Bridge and UPnP Bridge, and so on and so on. There are a lot of options. Personally, I use RowPi XL because I am streaming Tidal and Qobuz using my Android phone, and for that I can use mConnect app or Bubble UPnP app, for example. There are some others probably. And from there, I'm just streaming to USBridge as a UPnP renderer. It's bridging to my DAC and I'm listening to it. Now that said, let's move to the most important part, and that's how it actually sounds. And I'll tell you right out of the box, if you connect any 5 volts power to it, you do not ground it in any way, it definitely sounds better than any PC or laptop that I've ever heard. It sounds cleaner, it digs more details, edges are crisper, everything is better. But being an audiophile streamer, it's kinda expected to beat a general purpose PC and laptop easily. And USBridge passes that test without any problems. But I really wanted to explore what is the maximum of this unit, what it can offer. So I chose to power it with a clean linear power supply. I use Allo USBridge. You can use anything else, but you just need to know that it needs to be 5 volts and up to 3 amperes, because this is a little bit hungry device compared to most DACs that will be perfectly fine with 1 ampere or less. This requires 3 amperes. I used Allo USBridge for that, and I immediately noticed that USBridge started to retrieve more details. It started to layer better. Soundstage became wider and deeper. Everything just improved. So if you're already investing in an audio streamer like this one, I highly suggest that you immediately acquire some sort of low noise power supply. Now, it doesn't have to be Allo USBridge like I'm using, but some sort of low noise power supply. It will reward you with a cleaner and more detailed and just more spacious sound. And for the last possible improvement, I actually did what manufacturer suggests, and I connected with a wire this grounding pin with Allo USBridge's grounding pin, because Allo USBridge power supply has electrical ground coming from the mains from your wall socket. So if you ground this one to it, then the whole box, whole case is now grounded, and that actually did improve sonics. Now it's not by a huge margin, but I definitely noticed like more calm and more dark background. And soundstage gained a little bit of depth, while instruments gained a little bit of empty space around them. Tones themselves became a little bit fuller, a little bit richer and juicier. Now I'm talking about small differences, but basically it's a free gain, so do this. And even if you don't use Allo USBridge that has this connector already prepared for grounding the unit, you can actually ground it to any sort of electrical ground. Just find a wire that's long enough and then connect it one end at USBridge, the other end at the first available electrical ground that you can find. And basically what it does, that it grounds the whole case and it drains all electromagnetic interferences that are hitting this case. It drains that to the ground. And because of that, the whole idea of Faraday cage works a little bit better, and the sound becomes a little bit cleaner, deeper, richer. Just try it for yourself. If you don't hear anything, you don't have to use it. So at this moment, when I actually thought that we have the maximum sound quality getting from USBridge, I started comparing it to some more serious competition than laptops and PCs. So the first one in line was Raspberry Pi 4 by itself, because Raspberry Pi 4 is the best Pi version if you're using USB outputs. It has the cleanest USB out, and it sounds really decent. It's basically the cheapest audio streamer that you can buy, and it already sounds really decent. I have a video dedicated to it specifically. But compared to USBridge, you definitely notice an uplift in performance. Now, one of the things that I noticed first is that USBridge reveals more texture from notes. For example, if I'm listening double bass or any instrument that has deep notes ranging from bass to mid-bass region, USBridge digs more texture out of them, while Pi 4 sounds a little bit more melted. And it's again similar with the mid-range. With Pi 4, it sounds a little bit denser and like a little bit more congested, while with USBridge is definitely more transparent, and you hear more of tiny details. They're just a little bit more of information. Same story for the highest frequency region. There is some more details to be heard there. There's more air that surrounds the instrument, the atmosphere from the recording itself when you're using USBridge compared to Pi 4. Now the difference is not huge, it's not like night and day. If you're using entry-level hi-fi system, it's probably not something that you would be concerned about. Pi 4 already sounds really decent, but for any aspiring hi-fi system, revealing hi-fi system, it will be something that you'll notice and that you'll probably like and appreciate. So Pi 4 aside, what I did next is I compared it to Allo's own DigiOne. Now that's a hat that you mount directly on top of Raspberry Pi, and then you assemble all of that in an acrylic case such as this one. The difference is that Allo DigiOne uses SPDIF interface. And you can use either BNC or coaxial RCA output, but this is a SPDIF interface, while USBridge uses USB interface. And this one is also slightly cheaper. And this, you might say, and you would have every right to say that, is a little bit of comparing apples to oranges, because every DAC has a little bit differently solved SPDIF input and USB input. And not all DACs sound equally good on their SPDIF input and their USB input. Also, depending on the cable you're using, if you're using a really high quality USB cable and low quality SPDIF, or vice versa, your conclusions may vary. That said, there is a power in numbers. So I tried both of these with some really good high quality cables, both USB ones and SPDIF ones, that actually in price exceeded both of these units. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not limiting their own capabilities and that I'm not creating a bottleneck with a cable. So I used really high quality digital cables. I tried several ones with each of these units. I also heard them with several different DACs. And as I said, there's a power in numbers, because on average, what I found out is that these two sound very similar. Everything that I praised about USBridge, being more revealing, more clear, crisp, with more air up top compared to Raspberry Pi 4 directly, it also stands for Allo DigiOne. Level of details is comparable, control over a baseline is comparable, retrieval of these subtle atmospheric details and echoes around the instruments and just soundstage depth and width is again very comparable. And I switched back and forth, and I often had trouble trying to find the difference and something to differentiate them by. And when that happens, when I am trying to observe a difference, but I'm like failing, or I'm just trying too much, you know that you have two really similar devices in terms of sound quality. And at that moment I realized, yeah, they are comparable. I didn't expect that, because Allo also produces a DigiOne signature. and you'll notice that this one is called USBridge signature. And I fully expected this one to sound better. And by chance, a friend of mine brought Allo DigiOne signature, and at one moment, one evening, we had all of three, so we listened all three of them. And to my surprise, and pretty much to everybody's surprise, especially to the owner of USBridge, we realized that Allo DigiOne signature, that I'm not having currently with me, sounded the best. It was definitely the one that revealed most of the tone texture. It also extended to the highest frequencies longer and better than these two devices. So we were able to hear more atmospheric details. And if we were listening to acoustic recording and there is a cymbal, for example, we would hear a tone decay longer and these small spatial cues better with Allo DigiOne signature than with any of these. And as we switched back and forth comparing these, we actually realized that DigiOne signature is one step above these two, while the basic DigiOne is actually comparable to USBridge signature player. And worth mentioning is that there is no basic USBridge. It's just this one, and they chose to call it signature. Price-wise, it's much closer to Allo DigiOne signature. It's a little bit cheaper than that, but it's definitely pricier than basic DigiOne. But in terms of sound fidelity, it's actually equal to DigiOne and not to DigiOne signature. And I suppose that a lot of you already owning USBridge signature will not be pleased about this conclusion. And to be perfectly honest, its owner also wasn't pleased by that, what he heard. And I will not try to explain or pretend to understand what's going on here. I can only suppose that making USB interface sound really good is more complex and probably more expensive than making SPDIF interface sound good. And that's the only logical answer I can think of. And that actually leads me to the conclusion of this video. So what do I think about USBridge signature player? I really like it, I really do. First of all, I like that it's a complete, already finished device. You don't have to stack anything on top of each other. I also like that it's aluminum box. It looks like a proper device, unlike these Allo DigiOne thingies in these plastic cases that can seem clanky and like a toy compared to this one. I like its connectivity, I like its features, and its sound quality is really, really good. My friend that is loaning this unit to me is now selling it. And if I felt that it sounded any better than my own Allo DigiOne, I would probably purchase this one secondhand from him. But I just don't hear it. As I said, I know a lot of you probably won't like this conclusion, but when it comes to sonic qualities, it is good, but is not any better than a basic DigiOne. And if I actually want to stay inside of Allo family and explore a little bit more their products, my next step personally would be to purchase Allo DigiOne signature, that we heard sounds a little bit more detailed, revealing, and subtle than both of these. So my conclusion, I guess, is if you're having a DAC with a quality SPDIF input, if you're able to use SPDIF interface, and you're thinking about any of these products, I would suggest to go with DigiOne line. If you want something on a budget, that's still great. Basic DigiOne. If you want something even better but a little bit pricier, DigiOne signature. And USBridge is still a great device, I just don't find it best bang for buck. in its own Allo family. But if you own one of those DACs that have only one USB input, then there's nothing stopping me from recommending it. If you also own a DAC that you're sure that has better USB input implementation than SPDIF implementation, then again it might be a good choice for you. And that would be all for today. If you liked the video, click that button, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and if you really like my work and the effort I'm putting into this channel, then consider becoming a patron. And that's it. Until next time. Bye.